That continued for a while. Again, I was just in high school, but when I was 17, my hometown has a sister city relationship with a small town in Japan on the Japan seaside or East Sea side, depending on how you want to call it. And I had the opportunity to do about a month in Japan as a 17-year-old to experience, the sister city, but also get around to other parts of Japan. And honestly, it was my own personal pivot to Asia. It changed my life. So very, very much supportive of study abroad and abroad experiences, and say that to students all the time. If you have an opportunity to get out and do something like that, go. Figure out what's interesting to you. Let that drive your future work. And so, with that as kind of a starting point, focused on, learning Japanese, went back and forth several times, including during graduate school, as John mentioned, and, focused on, and this is the reason why it's important also, because it was the doorway to Korea for me, but focused on the relationship between Japan from the Meiji period leading up into the annexation of Korea by Japan, how that happened, very much, part of what I was interested in. Did that work. Again, that's not government work, but followed my heart on that and did that. Decided not to pursue a PhD program, and, happy to talk to students about that as well. But it went back to what my heart was. I wanted to work for the U.S. government. How am I going to do that? Didn't yet know. But when the year I finished that final research fellowship at Osaka University on those issues I just talked about, I came home and learned of an opening at the State Department's Bureau of Intelligence and Research as a Japan analyst. I thought, this is it. This is exactly the perfect thing for me. Applied, learned they had someone else in mind for that position when they posted it. No problem. For whatever, luck, fortune, they brought me on anyway to do a regional position, regional analysis. I would have swept the floors, as a young, fresh out of school person interested in Asia. I really would have done whatever they asked. But on day one, my supervisor said, "Would you work on North Korea?" Absolutely. And all of my sort of Cold War fantasies and interest, really, all those bells went off, because at that moment in January of 2001, the global landscape looked very different, right? And North Korea, oddly, was really the only threat, that had a Cold War flavor to it. And so I began my work on North Korea. And it was that work that I think first allowed me to see U.S. Indo-Pacific alliances in action, often tested and strained, but performing often at their peak capacity. Countries coming together to deter, protect, and defend against a common bilateral relationships with. I'm thinking, obviously, Japan and Korea is a perfect example of that. Deeply held historical grievances. And that would have prevented the kind of engagement necessary for a really effective multilateral alliance. The truth somewhere, it's somewhere in between those two things, particularly as the history shows the U.S. continued to try to build a multilateral security alliance in the region. We have 1950